My boyfriend, Ethan Miller, gave the apartment we had painstakingly saved for as a birthday gift to his childhood sweetheart. He even said seriously that a woman should have a home of her own because that was the most solid support she could rely on. Sophie Hayes was moved and gave him a sweet kiss, while I simply turned away and quietly left. If our wedding home was gone, then there was no need for a wedding anymore. Emma, today's my birthday. Where's the gift you prepared? Sophie's voice sounded from behind me. When she saw my empty hands, the people in the private room immediately showed disdain, whispering that I was only there to eat and drink for free. Ethan's face darkened, and he scolded me directly. Emma, you really have no manners. Who comes to a birthday party empty-handed? Later, go out and buy Sophie an LV bag to make up for it. I had just gotten off work when he dragged me to this so-called birthday party, only to force me to watch him give away the home we were supposed to get married in. If it had been before, I would have argued with him endlessly, but now I was simply exhausted. I didn't come empty-handed. I removed the engagement ring from my finger, walked over, and personally slipped it onto Sophie's hand. Consider this your birthday gift. I wish you two a lifetime of happiness and an early child. The moment I finished speaking, I turned around and left the private room without a hint of hesitation. Ethan panicked and chased after me, grabbing my wrist tightly. Emma, you need to have some boundaries. I've always treated Sophie like a younger sister. Who exactly are you trying to provoke by saying things like that? I replied seriously. I'm not trying to provoke anyone, I just think the ring suits her better than it suits me. She wouldn't want an old ring you've already worn, he snapped. I shrugged, answering in an indifferent tone. If she doesn't like it, she can just throw it away. Ethan froze for a moment, then grumbled irritably. Fine. Don't ask me to buy you anything ever again. After that, he turned around and stormed off, while I only gave a faint, tired smile. That ring. Back then, I had practically lowered myself to beg him for it. On our engagement day, Ethan said the expenses had gone over budget, so the traditional wedding gold pieces were unnecessary. I didn't care about those superficial things anyway. I only had one request, that he buy me an engagement ring. But he accused me of being too materialistic and refused to buy one. Because of that, I, someone rarely upset, ignored him for a whole week. Only then did he reluctantly take me to buy a ring worth exactly 2,000 yuan. I treated it like a treasure and wore it all the time. But now I understood. Anything you have to beg for will never truly belong to you. Leaving the hotel, I walked along the sidewalk. The icy wind whipped across my body, but I didn't feel cold at all. No amount of cold could compare to the state of my heart. I didn't know how long I had been walking when my phone rang. It was Ethan. Emma, where did you go? My stomach hurts. If it hurts, take some medicine. Why are you calling me? In the past, whenever he said he felt even slightly tired, I would panic and rush to take care of him. But now I no longer wanted to be his free caregiver. After hanging up, I immediately called Director Zhang. Director Zhang, last time you said you wanted to transfer me to another province as the market director. Is that offer still valid? His voice was full of excitement. Of course, Emma. I've always appreciated your hard work and courage. With you leading the market expansion, we'll definitely succeed. I thanked him sincerely. Thank you for trusting me. I won't disappoint you. I booked a plane ticket for next week, preparing to leave the city for my new job in another province. Before leaving, I stopped by the mall to buy the coat I had been eyeing for a long time, then went to a restaurant and treated myself to a large, satisfying meal. My salary was never low, but before this, I had always been saving for a home. I had always lived frugally, calculating every penny. I once dreamed of having an apartment of my own, yet, right when that dream was about to come true, Ethan Miller cruelly destroyed everything. I sat inside the mall for a long time, only standing up to leave when the lights turned off and the place closed for the night. By the time I arrived home, it was nearly midnight. As soon as I opened the door, loud music blasted straight into my ears. In the living room, Sophie Hayes and a group of her friends were dancing wildly. The fabric sofa I had carefully chosen was covered in cake cream, and the floor was littered with trash. Every little detail in this apartment had been built with my effort, and now they were trampling all over it. I felt both furious and heartbroken. I switched on all the lights in the living room. The sudden brightness instantly cut into their fun. Everyone showed clear annoyance as they all turned to look at me. Swallowing my anger, I spoke in a cold voice. Sophie smirked smugly and walked toward me, holding the property deed in her hand. Emma, you really forget things, don't you? Ethan already gave this apartment to me. Don't you remember? Her friends immediately chimed in. Yeah, this place belongs to Sophie now. We can do whatever we want. Another girl even added mockingly, Sophie, you should change the locks soon. Who knows what kind of stray cat or dog might sneak in again and bother you. I snatched the property deed out of Sophie's hand, opened it, and held it up for everyone to see. Take a good look. The names on the deed are mine and Ethan Miller's. If you don't get out right now, I'll call the police and report all of you for trespassing. For a moment, Sophie's face flickered with embarrassment, but she quickly regained her composure. Emma, what are you so proud of? Ethan already said clearly that tomorrow he'll transfer the ownership to me. I replied coldly. This apartment is jointly owned by me and Ethan. For him to transfer ownership, both signatures are required, his and mine. If I don't agree, nothing can be transferred. Hearing that, Sophie immediately burst into tears. She started sobbing while calling Ethan. Less than 15 minutes later, Ethan rushed over. Sophie threw herself into his arms, acting pitiful as she clung to him. Ethan, you already gave this apartment to me, but now your sister Emma is threatening to call the police and saying we trespassed. Ethan frowned and walked straight toward me. Without saying a word, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me outside. Emma, I already gave this apartment to Sophie. You making a scene like this is embarrassing. Come home with me right now. His tone was sharp and impatient. I jerked my hand out of his grip and spoke coldly. Ethan Miller? Have you forgotten that I also contributed money when we bought this apartment? What gives you the right to give it away behind my back? Being confronted in front of so many people instantly made Ethan lose his patience. He snapped. Emma, are you really going to argue with me over this? What about the 280,000 yuan your mother demanded from me as betrothal money? Your family didn't even give a single cent of dowry. How do you explain that? Sophie's friends immediately erupted in gossip. Oh my God, isn't that basically selling a daughter? There are still families asking for bride price these days? Typical family that only cares about the son. Anyone who marries a woman like that is doomed for life. Every whispered remark felt like a knife to my skin, burning my face. The deep-seated inferiority I carried inside surged up again. Since I was young, my parents had favored my brother and treated me like a money machine for the family. Because of that, I had never truly had confidence or a sense of security. I once believed Ethan understood my struggles, but now here he was, shamelessly tearing apart my dignity and exposing my most painful secrets in front of everyone. With no trace of compassion. Trying my best to stay calm, I pulled out a piece of paper where I had made quick calculations during dinner. I contributed 350,000 yuan to buy this apartment. Of that, my mom took 280,000, so you can return me the remaining 70,000. From now on, this apartment will belong entirely to you. Ethan stared at me, clearly startled. He obviously hadn't expected me to pull out something like this. Emma. Ethan looked at me and said, I really thought you were different from other girls. I didn't expect you to be this petty. I let out a faint, bitter laugh. Since you're so generous, go ahead and give me back the 70,000. Provoked by my words, Ethan immediately pulled out his phone and transferred the 70,000 to me. I accepted the money right away and said firmly, tomorrow at 8 in the morning, we'll meet at the notary office. Ethan clenched his teeth. Fine, Emma. Just don't come crying and begging me to take you back afterward. Sophie, on the other hand, beamed with excitement and quickly added, we'll be there on time. After walking out of the apartment complex, I didn't go home. Instead, I headed straight toward a nearby hotel. Watching my bank balance jump by 70,000, a wave of sorrow I couldn't suppress swelled heavily inside my chest. Right then, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Sophie. She sent an audio recording. In it, her voice was filled with disdain. Ethan, what do you even see in Emma? She's not pretty. She has no figure, and she's the kind of woman who drains money just to support her useless younger brother." Then, Ethan's mocking laugh came through the recording. "I thought a poor girl like her, someone who grew up without being valued, would throw herself into my arms if I just pretended to care a little. Who would have thought she'd let her parents extort me for a bride price? 280,000. With that kind of money, I could marry any woman I want. Why would I marry her?" Sophie's dramatic, mocking laugh echoed right after his. Every word pierced straight into my heart. So that was it. Every change in his attitude toward me came from the bride price of 280,000. My eyes burned and tears slipped down before I could stop them. I suddenly remembered the first time I met Ethan. I was in my second year of college. The day I received my university acceptance letter, my parents complained that sending me to school was just a waste of money. They flatly refused to pay my tuition or living expenses. I had no choice but to work 2 part-time jobs a day. Even in the cafeteria, I always chose the cheapest meals. After months of poor nutrition and exhaustion, I collapsed during a labor training class. The person who carried me to the school infirmary was Ethan Miller. From that day, he walked into my life. He said he had dialed the wrong number, yet he topped up my cafeteria card with more than 1,000 yuan. Then he showed up every day, insisting I use the card to treat him to meals. But every time we ate, he would pick out all the meat and put it into my bowl. Under his care, my health slowly recovered. Later he confessed to me. Because of my family situation, I hesitated to accept, but he patiently chipped away at the walls around my heart until he slowly entered it. I once foolishly believed he was the salvation of my life. But now I finally realized that the 5 years of my youth and my wholehearted love were all given to the wrong person. The next morning I woke up very early, not to do fancy makeup, but just to cover my swollen eyes so that Ethan and Sophie wouldn't see how much I had cried. I did a delicate, neat makeup look and put on the new coat I had bought. In the mirror, my eyes looked bright, and the aura around me was completely different from usual. Even Ethan paused for a moment when he saw me. Sophie noticed and immediately snapped with a sour tone. "Emma, that coat you're wearing costs 2,600 yuan. Don't tell me you bought it with the money Ethan gave back yesterday." Hearing that, Ethan frowned. "Emma, aren't you usually frugal? Who told you to spend so extravagantly?" I tilted my lips into a faint, calm smile and looked at both of them. "First, the 70,000 Ethan returned yesterday is my own money. It isn't some kind of favor. Second, I don't need anyone's permission to buy anything." I took a breath, keeping my voice steady. In the past, I starved myself and saved every penny so we could build a home together. Now that the house is gone, I no longer needed to suffer just to walk with someone who wouldn't accompany me to the end anyway. Sophie let out a disdainful snort and quickly clung to Ethan's arm. "Ethan, let's go inside. Number 1 is my lucky number. I want to be the first person to finish the name transfer today." But Ethan didn't move. He only stared at me. After a while, he finally spoke. "Emma, do you really have nothing you want to say to me?" I gave a faint smile. "I wish you everything you desire, and I wish Miss Hayes a smooth move into her new home." Ethan's face darkened, his voice strained with anger. "Fine, don't come crying to me later." The ownership transfer went smoothly. Sophie cheerfully held the deed with her name printed on it and skipped out of the notary office, her face overflowing with satisfaction. For me, everything was over. I turned around to leave, but Ethan's voice called after me. "The bridal shop called yesterday. They said our appointment to choose outfits for the photo shoot is today. And look at you. You dressed up nicely on purpose to win me back. Fine, I'll be generous and go with you." I turned back. The way I looked at Ethan was no different from looking at a fool. "Ethan Miller, do you really think that after losing our wedding home, I would still want to marry you?" A flicker of panic crossed his eyes as he quickly asked, "Emma, what do you mean by that?" I looked straight into his eyes and enunciated each word clearly. "I'm breaking up with you. The wedding is cancelled. Did you hear me?" "Emma, what kind of joke is this? The wedding is next week. Everything is already prepared, and now you say you're canceling it? Are you treating me like a joke?" Ethan snapped, furious. I smirked. "You could give our wedding home away to someone else. Compared to that, canceling a wedding is nothing. If anything, I'm being too kind. My eyes left him and shifted to Sophie. Or better yet, you can change the bride. She already took your house and is wearing your engagement ring. She'd make a fine bride. Clutching the deed tightly, Sophie's face flushed red. I'll listen to whatever Ethan says. Ethan straightened, his tone stern. Emma, how many times do I have to say this? I've always treated Sophie like a younger sister. She's an orphan who's been living off her aunt and uncle. She's pitiful. If she had to rely on herself, who knows when she'd afford a home. As her big brother, I helped her a little. What's wrong with that? You're just being unreasonable and jealous. I let out a laugh, completely unrestrained. And what about me? Am I not pitiful? Do I not deserve anything from you? You can give her a house and a ring. What exactly do I get? Ethan responded confidently, as if he believed the words he was saying. What more do you need? You have me. Isn't having me by your side enough? His shamelessness was astonishing. I didn't want to waste a single second arguing anymore. I turned around and walked away. That night, I posted a status, end of story. Ethan Miller and I are done. The wedding is canceled. My college friends immediately flooded the comments, lamenting how we had loved each other so deeply, from school days all the way to picking out wedding dresses. How did it end up like this? They asked. If it hadn't been for that recording, I might still have believed that at the very least, Ethan and I had once truly loved each other. But now I knew it had all been an illusion. Less than half an hour after I posted it, Ethan called. Emma, who gave you the right to cancel the wedding on your own? The wedding is not canceled. My voice was ice cold. Whether you want to hold a wedding or not is your business. As for me, I'm not showing up. Ethan Miller, as far as I'm concerned, we're done. Refusing to give up, he pressed on. Emma, are you really breaking up with me over one apartment? Yes, exactly because of an apartment. Perhaps Ethan Miller would never understand how important a home was to me. Hearing the finality in my voice, he switched to a bargaining tone. Fine, then we'll just buy another apartment. This time we won't have the $600,000 my parents gave us, but we can save again for 2 more years. Just pay the down payment and then handle the monthly installments. What's the problem? Ethan said. I remembered how, for 2 whole years, I couldn't even afford one new outfit. Even when I was starving outside, I'd force myself to go home and cook. I tried to save every single penny. Thinking about finally having a place I could call my own gave me enough determination to endure anything. And yet with just one sentence from him, that entire dream was given away to someone else. Now he still casually said we could save for another 2 years. 2 more years, and then 35 more struggling to pay off the mortgage. What was I, some worthless thing only good for suffering beside him? I took a slow, deep breath, my voice calm but as sharp as a blade. Ethan Miller. A home was once the dream I longed for most, but now, I don't want to own one with you ever again. Right after I hung up on Ethan, my phone lit up with calls from my parents. Before I could say a single word, they unleashed a storm of insults. Their meaning was clear. If I didn't want the marriage, fine, but the 280,000 yuan in bride price would never be returned. If I wanted peace, I had only 2 options: marry him like they said, or figure out how to repay the money myself. I wasn't surprised. The moment that money reached their hands, I already knew exactly what would happen. It had all been poured into my brother's investment scheme. The truth was, that money never belonged to me, and I never expected them to return it. But this time, I would use that same money as the final knife to cut every tie between us. I replied flatly, I'll come home tomorrow. We'll talk in person. That night, Ethan still refused to let go. He sent me hundreds of messages, first commanding me not to cancel the wedding, then slowly begging, pleading, lowering himself. I didn't bother reading them and blocked him outright. The next morning, I brought the agreement I had drafted beforehand and returned to my parents' house. The moment I stepped inside, my parents' and brother's eyes were full of disgust, as if my presence dirtied the entire place. My mother spoke first. Emma, the wedding has already been arranged. It's happening soon. Why are you canceling it now? I kept a calm expression as I looked at each of them. You told Ethan's parents yourselves that you weren't providing any dowry. Now that they found out, they're demanding that whatever amount they gave as bride price must be matched equally by the bride's family. If not, the wedding is off. My mother immediately waved her hands frantically. Impossible. We raised you, fed you, sent you to college, at least $200,000 already. And now they want us to pay? What? They expect a profit from marrying our daughter? Inside, I laughed coldly. To lie so shamelessly, was she not afraid of being struck by lightning? My father slammed the table. If they won't marry, then so be it. In this day and age, who's afraid their daughter won't find a husband? I continued calmly, but their family said if there's no wedding, the 280,000 yuan bride price must be returned. If not, they'll go to the police and report you for marriage fraud. Hearing that, my brother, who had been absorbed in gaming the entire time, jumped in alarm. No way, I already invested that money with my friend. I can't take it out. I pretended to look troubled and glanced around. Then what should we do? If we don't return it, they will definitely file charges. My mother, still stubborn, snapped, "File what? As if I'd let my daughter be given away for free. He slept with you for years. That's payment enough." Her words sent a numb, icy wave through my chest. What did they see me as? A product to be exchanged for money? I didn't want to dance around the issue anymore. I said plainly, "There's one more option. We sever our relationship. I'll take responsibility for the 280,000 yuan. If they report anything, they'll only come after me." The moment I finished speaking, all three of them brightened instantly, praising the idea as if it were brilliant. I took out the agreement to sever family ties. All three of them signed without the slightest hesitation. After they finished, I was about to stand up and leave, but my mother said she had prepared a lot of dishes and invited me to stay for lunch. Thinking that this might be the last meal the four of us would ever have together as a family, I nodded and agreed. Now that their biggest worry was taken care of, my mother went into the kitchen, my father continued watching his spy drama, and my brother stayed glued to his game. Only I sat there, completely out of place. When I opened the bathroom door, I realized the folding bed, my bed, was gone. Our home only had 2 bedrooms, one for my parents and one for my brother. From the day I was born, I had never had my own room. At best, I had a folding bed, sometimes in the living room, sometimes shoved into a corner of the kitchen, sometimes moved into the bathroom. That was why I had always longed for a home of my own, just a single room where I could feel like I could grow, take root, and belong. My mother really had prepared a lot of food, but ironically, the table was filled only with dishes my brother liked. Not a single one was something I enjoyed. I chewed as if chewing wax, swallowing tasteless bites, one after another, then walked out of the apartment complex like a soulless shell. I didn't expect to run into Ethan Miller right at the entrance. He hurried toward me, handed me a tissue, his eyes filled with pain. Only then did I realize I had been crying. My cheeks were freezing. "You never look happy after visiting home," he said softly. "Why do you still go back at all?" I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and answered calmly, "Because I needed to tell them clearly that our wedding is canceled." Ethan's face stiffened. "Emma, didn't I tell you? I'll buy you another house. Why are you so stuck on this one thing?" I walked past him without looking at him. "Because I don't love you anymore. Is that reason enough?" He almost blurted out, "No. I don't believe it. You loved me so much, how can you suddenly stop loving me?" I stopped and gave him a sideways glance filled with sarcasm. "Believe whatever you want." Right then his phone rang. On the screen, the name Sophie lit up clearly. Ethan hesitated for a few seconds before picking up. "Sophie, didn't I tell you to stop calling me so much?" On the other end, her voice came through with sobs. "Ethan, I twisted my ankle on the stairs. It hurt so bad. Hoo-hoo." Ethan panicked immediately. "Where are you? Don't cry, I'm coming right now." After hearing the address, he rushed into his car. As the engine started, he suddenly remembered I was still standing there. He lowered the window, looking apologetic. "Emma? Sophie hurt her ankle. I'll take her to the hospital and then come back for you." I smiled and nodded gently. "Go, don't make her wait. A twisted ankle hurts a lot, I understand. You have my permission." Only then did Ethan look relieved. "I'll be back soon. Wait for me." Then his car sped off into the bustling street. I had seen this exact scene countless times. No matter where or when, the moment Sophie called, he would leave me behind and he would never come back. The truth was, Ethan misunderstood me. It wasn't that I suddenly stopped loving him. It was that my love had been worn down little by little, countless times, through endless waiting, endless disappointment, until nothing remained. Sure enough, not long after, I saw a new post from Sophie on her social feed. My childhood sweetheart is also my guardian angel. Whenever I need him, he's always there. Attached was a selfie of her leaning against Ethan's chest, smiling blissfully. Below that was a post from yesterday. He said a girl needs her own home to feel secure, so he bought me one. I'm so happy. He even took her to Disney, the place she had wanted to visit for so long. Because of posts like that, Ethan and I had argued countless times, but now I tapped like on each one of them, one by one. It wasn't until I finished showering and lay down on the hotel bed that my phone finally rang. Ethan called, his voice sounding tired. "Emma, I'm here to pick you up. Where are you?" I answered calmly, "No need, I'm already home." His tone carried a hint of blame. "Why did you leave without telling me? I came all the way for nothing. Do you know how tired I am today?" A soft, mocking laugh escaped my lips. "Do you think I'm stupid, Ethan? Look at the time. On what basis do you think I'd still be waiting in the same spot for you?" But the truth was, I used to be that stupid. Once, during a rare holiday, we planned to go hiking together. We had only climbed halfway when Ethan received a call from Sophie. He left immediately, telling me, "You go ahead, wait for me at the top." So I climbed all the way up, from when the sun was blazing overhead until the thin crescent moon hung high in the night sky. I sat there foolishly waiting for him. Standing at the summit that year, deep down I already knew Ethan wouldn't come back. But I still insisted on waiting, just to see if he ever remembered me. When he finally did, his first call wasn't even an apology, it was a scolding. "Emma, you're such an idiot. If you couldn't wait, you should have gone home. Why stand there making a scene?" That memory must have surfaced in his mind too, because his voice suddenly dropped, carrying a trace of guilt. "I'm sorry, Emma. I promise, I'll never leave you behind again." I looked straight at him, my voice flat. "Your apologies aren't even worth a penny." In the days that followed, Ethan kept calling or waiting for me outside my office. But most of the time, even when he did manage to see me, after just a few words, Sophie's phone call would ring again. And every time, he would rush off immediately, only to call me later to apologize again. This cycle repeated over and over, all the way until the day before the wedding. That day, Ethan looked at me seriously. "Emma, Sophie is being discharged today. You know she doesn't have any family. I'm the only one who can help her with the paperwork. But I promise, this is the last time. After we get married tomorrow, I'll reduce contact and keep my distance from her." I didn't understand where he got such confidence from. He stubbornly believed that my coldness, my breakup, my canceling the wedding, everything, was just me throwing a tantrum. He truly believed I would still show up to marry him the next day. Faced with such delusion, I no longer felt the need to explain. I simply nodded casually and went home to quietly pack my luggage. Coincidentally, the day I flew with my colleagues to the new province for work was the very day of our scheduled wedding. That was the day Ethan finally realized I wasn't joking. The next morning, I pulled my suitcase to the airport and met my colleagues at the gate. Before boarding, I turned on my phone and glanced at Ethan's messages. "Emma, where are you getting your makeup done? The bridal shop said you never showed up." "Emma, the hotel said you already checked out. What's going on?" "Emma, today is our wedding day. Where are you?" I sent him my live location at the airport, then boarded the plane and turned off my phone. Thinking about Ethan running around desperately searching for me, I felt a strange sense of relief. Looking out the window at the blue sky and white clouds, I knew I was stepping into a new life. 6 months later, I finally returned. I was now the market director returning to headquarters to report my 6-month results. After my presentation ended and I stepped out of the building, I saw Ethan standing at the entrance. He looked noticeably worn down, his face weathered and tired. When he saw me, he couldn't seem to hold himself back. He immediately ran over and pulled me into a tight hug. "Emma, where have you been these past 6 months? I searched everywhere for you. I couldn't find you anywhere." I had already heard from my coworkers that Ethan had been looking for me frantically, but I had told them beforehand not to reveal anything about my whereabouts. They also didn't like him. After all, any man who would give away his wedding home was the kind of man they despised. After getting turned away several times, he eventually stopped showing up. I thought he had already given up on me. I placed my hand on his shoulder and pushed him away, meeting his gaze with cold detachment. Looking closely now, I realized how blind I had been, loving such a mediocre man to the point I lost myself. I had lowered myself far too much. My voice was distant and icy. "Ethan Miller, why are you still looking for me? I told you everything clearly long ago." Ethan grew agitated. "Emma, I want to take you somewhere. Once you see it, you'll definitely forgive me." "I'm sorry," I said calmly. "My time is valuable. I don't have any to waste on you." I turned to leave, but Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist and forcefully pushed me into the back seat of his car, shutting the door firmly. I pulled out my phone, ready to call the police, when his trembling yet urgent voice came from outside the door. "Emma, please, just come with me this once. I swear if we get there and you still can't forgive me, I'll never bother you again." I didn't know why, but my hand slowly lowered the phone. Maybe somewhere inside me, a sliver of curiosity surfaced. Where could he possibly take me that gave him enough confidence to say something like that? The car rolled forward, and the route grew more and more familiar. When it finally stopped, my heart tightened. In front of me was the entrance of the very apartment complex, our supposed newlywed home. The place that once held all my hopes, and the place where all my illusions had shattered. Something inside me already sensed what this was about. Ethan led me upstairs, stopping in front of the door of our former apartment. He took out a key and opened it. Inside, everything had been restored exactly to how it looked when I first moved in. The simple fabric sofa, the minimalistic wooden legs, a vase of tulips on the table, even the decorative piece Sophie and her friends had broken had been replaced with an identical one and set back in its original spot. Ethan took out a bright red deed and opened it. Inside were his name and mine, with the transfer date marked clearly. 3 months ago. He handed it to me, his eyes filled with sincerity. "Emma, I was wrong before. Sophie and I grew up together. She lost her parents young. Adults always told me to protect her, to care for her. Over the years, protecting her became something deeply ingrained in me. But these 6 months without you, I finally realized the person I love most, the one who matters the most, is you." He pointed to the apartment around us. "I got the place back. Let the conflict that began with this home also end with this home." His words were beautiful, beautiful enough to soften anyone's heart. But those words were meant for the girl I used to be. The woman standing here now needed none of that. I reached into my bag and took out a set of keys, gently shaking them in front of him. "I don't need to rely on anyone anymore. I'm capable of achieving everything I once dreamed of, on my own." My 6 months opening a new market in another province had been grueling, but the rewards were worth it. My salary had doubled. Combined with the $70,000 I saved, I had paid the full down payment and bought myself a 60-square-meter apartment. It wasn't big, and it wasn't in a fancy location. But for me, it was enough. It was a place that truly belonged to me. A home of my own. Ethan stared at the keys in my hand, his whole body stiffening, unable to say a word. Finally, his eyes reddened, his voice trembling. "Emma, is there really no chance left for us?" I answered decisively, "No." Tears slid down his face, falling drop by drop. I knew that this time, he had truly let go. He had been so confident, taking back the house from Sophie, restoring every detail with care, convinced that this time I would forgive him. But in the end, I used that very house to strike him where it hurt the most. I turned away. I had no obligation to comfort him anymore. When I reached the ground floor, I ran into Sophie Hayes. She stared at me with pure hatred. "Emma, you must feel pretty proud right now, don't you? You think you've won?" Before, I wouldn't have bothered to respond to someone like her, much less now. I walked straight past her without sparing a glance, but Sophie shouted after me, refusing to give up. "Emma, let me tell you, I'm pregnant with Ethan's child. He'll be mine no matter what." I only gave a faint, indifferent smile and replied without looking back, "Then congratulations. I wish the 3 of you a happy family." This return trip truly had waves of chaos. Just as I resolved everything with Ethan Miller, my parents suddenly showed up at my workplace to create a scene. It turned out my brother's investment, the 280,000 yuan they took from me, had completely vanished. He had been scammed and whisked overseas by a fraudulent group. Now, they demanded 1 million yuan in ransom. My parents scraped together all the savings of their lives and even sold the old apartment near the school district, managing to gather 700,000. Still short 300,000, they once again targeted me. I immediately called the police to handle the matter. After that, they went online to play the victims, trying to use filial piety to guilt-trip me into giving them money. In response, I publicly posted our signed agreement severing ties, along with a long article recounting the years of gender discrimination I had suffered in that household. The post exploded. Only then did I realize how many women had endured the same pain, the same upbringing, the same wounds. We encouraged one another online, and many even considered me an example. Because as daughters, we cannot choose where we are born or who our parents are. But with our own hands, through resilience and refusal to bow, we can build a future that belongs to us. My parents tried to weaponize filial piety, but it failed. Instead, they became the targets of the public's outrage and stopped showing their faces entirely. Later, I heard they borrowed everywhere to gather the 1 million yuan. But even so, my brother was never rescued. Losing their son broke them completely, and in the end, the two of them chose to end their own lives. When I heard the news, I still took a day off, returning to handle their funeral and collect their remains. 5 years later, I had been promoted to Deputy General Director and transferred back to the headquarters. Our company organized a charity program to support children with heart disease, and I attended as one of the representatives. I didn't expect to see Ethan Miller at the event. He was carrying a frail little boy, coming to register for medical assistance. That was when I learned the truth. Years ago, Sophie had secretly taken fertility drugs to get pregnant with Ethan's child. The two of them were forced to marry because of the pregnancy. But due to the drug's effects and her lack of prenatal checkups, the baby was born with severe congenital heart disease. To save his child, Ethan spent everything he had. In the end, Sophie left him anyway. Since we had once known each other, I quietly told the staff in charge about his situation. Because of that, his son received medical assistance from the program. When the event ended, I got into the company car to leave. Ethan chased after us with his child in his arms, bowing his head in gratitude. I simply waved dismissively and didn't care to respond. Later, a coworker asked me, "Why didn't you take this chance to get revenge, to vent all the grievances from back then?" I smiled and replied, "There's no need." The person who once started from the same point as me, after all these years, when we finally met again, I was standing at the peak of my career, while he had fallen to the very bottom, to the point where he had to rely on my help just to save his child's life. That gap between us was far more bitter than any revenge I could have taken. Ethan Miller's perspective. After everything, I used to think I had life all figured out. I thought I knew what love was, what responsibility was. But the truth is, from beginning to end, I was the blindest one of all. When Emma left, I convinced myself it was just one of her little tempers. She had always forgiven me, no matter how badly I messed up. I was arrogant enough to believe that whenever I reached out, she would come back. But the day she sent me her location at the airport, that was when it hit me. Emma was gone, completely gone. I searched everywhere for her. I called nonstop, texted nonstop, but all I heard was the cold, ringing tone. I'd never known panic like that. It wasn't until I stood alone in our decorated wedding hall, surrounded by flowers, chairs, portraits, that I truly felt the weight of losing her. 6 months later, I saw her again. Emma walked out of the company building like she belonged on top of the world, confident, radiant, successful. And me? I had fallen to the bottom, holding on to nothing but a sick child and a pile of regrets. Seeing her in that moment, my heart twisted painfully. I wanted to run to her, to beg her forgiveness, to tell her how terribly wrong I had been. But the way she looked at me, distant, cold, unreadable, told me everything. I didn't matter to her anymore. I tried to hang on to whatever hope I had left, but when she told me no with that steady, unwavering voice, I knew it was over. I went back to the apartment that was supposed to be our home. I fixed every detail myself, restored everything to how she used to like it. I thought that if she saw my effort, she would soften. But I forgot one thing. A woman's heart isn't something you can break and then replace. When it's shattered, it never goes back to the way it was. At the charity event, when she stood there representing her company, while I held my frail son in my arms, the shame burned through me. My life had collapsed, the money gone, Sophie gone, my child sick, and Emma. Emma had risen so far I could barely reach her shadow. When the event ended, I chased after her car just to say thank you. She simply waved me off, not coldly, not bitterly, but with no emotion at all. And that hurt more than any anger ever could. That night, I held my son and cried silently. I had spent my whole life being told to protect this person or care for that person. But the one person I should have protected the most was the one I hurt the deepest. Now I finally understand something. My greatest regret isn't losing Emma. My greatest regret is not cherishing her when she was still mine. If there's another life after this one, I hope I get a chance to meet her again, just so I can say the one thing I never managed to say when it still mattered. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. But in this life, we missed each other forever.